Hello again. Episode 2. I've been doing books. What books have I been doing? Well, let me tell you. Why not? Sorry it's so dark and spooky at the moment. And instead of a wonderful full bookshelf, we just have things like dishcloths and actual pairs of pants. I'm just going to move that. I didn't realise that was there. We're moving house. So I did warn that there would be boxes. Look at all these boxes. Those are all boxes. So many boxes. Those are all books, actually. Every single one of those, except the top one, are boxes. Millions of boxes of books. Mad. We've actually labelled them for the bookshelf. So we've got two of these, one behind the other. Shelf 1, 2, 3, 4. So we know where they came from, so we know where to put them back on. Yeah. So instead of a lovely full bookshelf, I have a few random books here, which are almost certainly Anna's, with the exception of. No, those are Anna's. Oh, that one's. No, they're all Anna's. Definitely all Anna's. But fear not, I have prepared. I have books in front of me. And I've had a rubbish couple of weeks in terms of reading. I have read almost one book. But don't worry, I've got plenty to talk about regardless. So check it out. First of all, you may remember me talking about this one before. How I've randomly picked it up and thought, this looks interesting. I am most of the way through it. And guess what? It's really interesting. Obviously, it's about Chernobyl, which is quite a heavy subject. But it's gripping, it's fascinating. And it's very, well, it sounds stupid, really realistic, believable. You read it and you go, yeah, I could imagine people acting like this. I could imagine people saying this. Because the book is full of phrases or quotes, that's the word, from people who were there at the time. So it will talk about people in the city of Kiev and being told to evacuate and just the things they said and what they saw. And, oh, the government said this, or I read this in the papers. Or the reactions of the people, the government officials or whatever, who are tasked with sorting it all out and how they're all desperate to blame somebody, to find somebody to pin it all on. Hold on. Maybe this light will make it brighter. Wait, ready? It's a bit better, isn't it? It's not quite the bright, enormous luminescence I was hoping for, but. Oh, God, that looks a bit spooky. I look like I'm in where am I? Like in a cop drama. Like I'm in an extreme lighting, you know? Anyway. So it's all about them trying to blame people, find someone to blame, or find someone to take the stick for it. So the people who run the plant the commission people will turn up and they'll hope they blame them, or the head of nuclear power or something in the city or in the country will try and blame them. And it's so interesting. Obviously, it's absolutely terrifying because it keeps saying things like, oh, if this had happened slightly differently, all of Europe would have been destroyed, or the whole world would have been destroyed. And you think, oh, okay, fantastic. But it's such an interesting book. If you're into that sort of thing, into radiation, into nuclear power, into global tragedy and catastrophe, I recommend it. Or, I guess, Russians. If you like Russia and the way they do things, then you know, I recommend it. Nearly finished. Can't wait to find out what happens at the end. hope they get away with it. So, no, still reading that. Still very much enjoying it. Speaking of Russians, where's the next one? One I haven't read yet, but I've been highly recommended, is this one. Nothing is true and everything is possible. By Peter Pomerantsev. I'm so terrible with these names. Serhii Plukhy. I didn't even say that one. Why do I pick books with such difficult names? It's a book about Russia. I'm going to read you the back because it's much nicer than doing anything else. Weirdly enough, the blurb explains it quite well. So, take a deep trip into the glittering, surreal world of a 21st century Russia, erupting with new money and new power, changing so fast it breaks all sense of reality. Sounds mental, doesn't it? Londoner Peter Pomerantsev arrived in Russia in 2006, seeing opportunities in the newly booming TV industry. There he gained access to every nook and corrupt cranny of the giant country, from propaganda gurus through to Siberian gangsters and the elite super rich in London and the US, but also found himself drawn further and further into the system. It just talks about Russia and how they do what they do, and they're kind of just I keep saying it's just Russia, but it is. But the way they manage government and policy and reputation and just the things they get up to. And I'm really looking forward to it because I've heard some very good things. Like how, I might have mentioned this last time, how Russia, they effectively capitalise on chaos. They create so much chaos and uncertainty that you cannot be sure what is real and what is fake. So if you're the government, you fund pro-government and anti-government parties. That way nobody will believe that you're doing that. And because they say the government would never fund a pro or an anti-government party, they stop believing things that are reported in the media, which is also controlled by the government. So because nobody can be entirely sure what's real and what isn't, you can seize that opportunity. Also, Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, isn't it? Chaos is a ladder. And it's basically that. That's what Russia does. So, that sounds interesting. I don't have the Discomfort of Evening near me, but we did talk about the Discomfort of Evening last time because it was the book club book. I didn't finish it, I'll be honest, because it was insane. It was a weird book. The whole plot, I realise now, having looked back at the previous video, I didn't actually say what the last book really was about most of the time, or talk about them in any kind of detail. So I'm learning, don't worry. It's essentially about a young girl, very young, I can't remember how old, 12, 13, maybe even younger, who experiences a tragedy. So her brother dies in a kind of freak accident. And it's her dealing with that tragedy in this house of a family who don't really know how to deal with tragedy properly. They're all dealing with it in their own way, and they're all doing quite a bad job of it. But it's weird, man. So the girl starts fantasizing about strange things and starts doing weird graphic things. Not like sexual things, like violent things. Like stabbing herself with pins and like eating just bits of metal, and it's just very strange. And like doing these strange things to these frogs. And all her family are, I'm not going into too much detail, but it's clearly a very, someone's tried very hard to get a certain image from it. And I guess they've succeeded, but it isn't very nice. You don't read it going, wow, this is great. You read it going, oh, this is horrible. And if that's the sort of thing you like, then fill your boots. But if you like nice books, or at least books that make sense, I wouldn't recommend it. A lot of graphic descriptions of like toileting, and I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think it's really for me. So, but I did try. So, yeah. Next one. This is the next book club book, which I have to start, I suppose, and finish. So, I do try to finish book club books, but I'm so bad at it. Anyway, it's this one here. It's Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. Those of you who know about Hamlet will know that he was Shakespeare's son. And he dies. And we have a very cheerful book group, lots of very happy, cheerful, nice books. We read, what was it? Girl is a Half-Formed Thing 2 months ago. It's been a bleak few months in the book group. But yeah, it's essentially about, on a summer's day in 1596, a young girl in Stratford-upon-Avon takes to her bed with a sudden fever. Her twin brother, Hamnet, searches everywhere for help. Why is nobody at home? Their mother, Agnes, is over a mile away, in the garden where she grows medicinal herbs. Their father's working in London. Neither parent knows that Hamnet will not survive the week. Sounds pretty bleak, but it's meant to be quite good. So I'm looking forward to that. At least I hope with this one it'll make sense. The other book I couldn't really get into because no one seemed to do anything for any reason. It just sort of happened. And I don't like that so much. I'm a simple fella. I like things to be clear. I like to read a book and go, I understood what just happened. Instead of reading a book and go, what the hell is this? So, yes, Hamlet by Maggie O'Farrell. Need to start and finish that one. What else? Randomly, we were going through books because we're all packing all these books, right? Anna started reading one, and I'm going to mention it now. Sex, Lies and Handwriting. This book is meant to be interesting. People say it's good. I didn't get on with it. The whole point of it is it details how someone's handwriting can explain lots about their personality, whether they're like a murderer or whether they're just an asshole or something. Looks can be deceiving, but handwriting never lies. Handwriting profiling is an amazingly accurate tool for assessing how people feel and act. Good use of amazingly. Everyone likes adverbs, especially in blurbs. Very strong. Handwriting expert. Sound like a snob, don't I? Handwriting expert Michelle. It's because I've been writing a book and the unwritten rule is don't use adverbs. Especially amazingly. Anyway. Handwriting expert Michelle Dresbold, the only civilian to be invited to the United States Secret Service Advanced Documentation Examination Training Program. Oh my God. Everyone's favourite program, draws on her extensive experience helping law enforcement agencies around the country on cases involving kidnapping, arson, forgery, murder, embezzlement, and stalking to take us inside the mysterious world of crossed T's and dotted I's. In Sex, Lies and Handwriting, it's a long blurb this, Dresselbold explains how a single sentence can provide insight into a person's background, psychology and behaviour. Throughout, Dresselbold explores the handwriting of sly politicians, convicted criminals, notorious killers, suspected cheats. It goes on and on and on. But when I read it, what I was expecting is I was expecting her to say, look at the way this letter is shaped. This indicates this kind of behaviour because. The fact that people write sharp corners means they're more likely to be a murderer because. But it doesn't. The full stop is earlier on in the sentence. So it says, ooh, people who write like this are more likely to be murderers. Anyway, people who write like this are more likely to be philanderers. And I'm like, why? Is this just. It felt to me just like baseless conjecture. Like, I feel like if you took the. Well, if you took the pictures, well, let's find. You know what? So one of the things they do is they'll say like. Where is it? They'll say like. Compare these signatures and figure out which one the murderer is. And of course you can't because, you know, you're not a fake. But it'll say things like, oh, they do this. Writer number 2 strings his illegible letters together with a long squiggly thread. When threading makes a name illegible, it usually means the writer is evasive and will try to wiggle out of situations. What does that even mean? It doesn't. That's just complete fabrication. I got annoyed at it. I tried to do it and I got really annoyed at it because it's all stuff like that. It's just bollocks, isn't it? And I thought, I bought this book and now I feel robbed. I don't know how much I paid for it. It's probably like 50p from a charity shop. But I still felt robbed. Robbed, I feel. So yeah, I would not recommend this unless you feel like taking a brain out and just sort of just sitting there and having a book happen to you. That sounds awful, doesn't it? But it's true. What else? I bought 2 new books. What I do, I realised very recently, is I only seem to read books based on the recommendation of someone else. Is it still working? Okay, good. Sorry if that was noisy then. So I'll only read a book if somebody I know and like, ideally, says, oh, I read this book, it was really good. And I'll think, okay, I'll read it then. Very rarely do I go out of my way to find a book and just go, that I've never heard of, and go, wow, this looks brilliant, and buy it. And I'm trying to do that more because I think, I just want to be involved more in forging my own path, I suppose. So, I bought this one. The Radium Girls. I've got a bit of a thing about nuclear energy. I think it's because it's so potentially devastating and it's almost like magic. The fact that it's just so far advanced, so separate from anything I'm familiar with. I find it fascinating. Terrifying, but fascinating. But this, interesting, here we go. As the First World War spread across the world, young American women flocked to work in factories, painting clocks, watches, and military dials with a special luminous substance made from radium. It was a fun job, lucrative and glamorous. The girls shone brightly in the dark, covered head to toe in dust from the paint. However, as the years passed, the women began to suffer from mysterious and crippling illnesses. It turned out that the very thing that had made them feel alive, their work, was slowly killing them. The radium paint was poisonous. Their employers denied all responsibility, but these courageous women, in the face of unimaginable suffering, refused to accept their fate quietly and instead became determined to fight for justice. So it's a non-fiction, and I thought, what an interesting concept. Everybody likes stories of the underdog sticking it to the man, quite literally in this case. If you're a woman, sticking it to the man, feminism, and just I find nuclear stuff, radiation, kind of morbidly fascinating. So I can't wait to get into this and see what happened. And there are some quite gruesome pictures. I've just flicked it open here. I suppose it's a bit of a spoiler, but I don't know if you can see. Can you see there? The sorts of things these poor women had to put up with. I want to see some people get their comeuppance and some women kicking some asses. So looking forward to that one. The Radium Girls by Kate Moore. And last of all, I like fantasy books. But again, I only ever read them on the recommendation of other people. Whether people buy them for me or whether I just go off and or someone tells me they're good. So I thought, you know what, bugger it. I'm just going to pick a random fantasy book that I thought looked vaguely interesting and off we go. So, Songs of the Earth by Elspeth Cooper. Never ever heard of it in my entire adult life. But I'm a musician and I've always wanted to write a fantasy book where music is the conduit. I haven't done it yet. Maybe one day. That's in the future. But I find that interesting. I know, a fair old bit about music, and I would love to see that that music used in an interesting way. And I think maybe I'd find that really appealing. So, this book here, Gare is under a death sentence. He can hear music, music with power. And in the Holy City, that means only one thing. He's a witch, and is going to be burned to the stake. That's enough for me. I thought, you know what, why not? Maybe it's great. And I know Goliaths. I know that they've published a few books that I find interesting, so, I thought, bugger it. Never heard of it before. Why not? Songs of the Earth by Elspeth Cooper. No idea if it's going to be good, might be bad. We'll find out. I have not read any more of The Manner's Handbook of the Fallen because I needed a break from it. It's so long. It's such a long book, such a long series. I will go back to it. If I continue my trend, I should be finishing it sometime in the year 2035. So yeah. What else? I've not done any writing whatsoever, which is quite bad, I know. I'm 90% of the way through this steampunk book, and I'm writing the story. I should really just finish it. But you know what it's like. If you've ever tried to write something, it's hard to get the motivation. Just like anything, running, exercise, whatever, eating healthy. Once you get into it, it's much easier, but it's that first step, and that consistency is what makes it difficult. So definitely trying to do that. As you can see, moving house. It's been 3 months. Been 3 months since you looked at me. No, 3 months since we instructed our solicitors, and we are still not quite moved yet. Top of our chain pulled out, which is very unexciting. But the guy beneath said, you know what? I don't care if I can't buy a house. I'm still going to sell my house and complete the chain. So good on him. Thanks to you, stranger up the chain. You're a cool guy with lots of friends, I hope. That's about it. It's another very windy, spooky, rainy, windy day. We've actually got wind warnings again. I don't know why I always film videos when there are wind warnings, but I do for some reason. So next time there's a weather warning, look out for a video from old Alex. Okay. I reckon that just about sums it up. Thank you for listening, watching, enjoying. If you enjoyed it, I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, thanks for enjoying it. If you didn't, I'm very sorry. And see you later.